we've got to change our focus from China. Like, take a look at different countries, India, Korea for cosmetics, over here for certain things. And we've noticed that we can compete or beat Chinese prices with products like wood.
Hey guys, thanks for coming back to the call with me. It's Neil here on the High Voltage Business Builders podcast. I have Norm Farrar. I'm going to pronounce that wrong. Did I pronounce that wrong? No,
you're perfect, 100%.
Okay, cool. I should have asked that earlier because I know people always ask if my last name was acronym. It's not an acronym. It actually is my last name. So welcome to the call. Thanks for having. Where in the world are you? Let's start out with that. And you don't have to give us your address, but where in the world are you today?
I'm about 2 hours north of Toronto.
North of Toronto. Okay, great. Fantastic. And so you are obviously in the Amazon space. I know that.
Yes.
You've been in it for a while. You are what I like to call in the world of Amazon a business builder, not just a business flipper, a product flipper, or any by other means. You are building businesses and brands on Amazon, which is why I love to have you here and talk a little bit more about that. So let's unpack some of that, like with your experience. Tell us a little bit about you and how you got involved in Amazon and how you got to be where you are. Give us some download here.
It goes back to early on, and I won't bore you with that, but I was involved with a promotions company. It was a very popular promotions company. And the reason why it was popular is we changed a lot of the ways that, you would sell a coffee mug. A coffee mug's a coffee mug. My partner and I came up with this idea of, how do you build perceived value? And that perceived value would give us an extra 20 or 30 points on those coffee mugs. So as I went through my, 30 years in this business, that kind of always stuck with me. Vertical integration in coffee and coffee mugs and perceived value. So I was in the promo business. From that, I got into eCom in the early days in the mid 90s, which led over to a print-on-demand corporate identity company, over to, it was a family thing. We were doing a lot of work over in China back in the 90s. My father saw what I was doing. He says, hey, how would you like to do some contract manufacturing over in Taiwan? We opened up a couple of companies, 2 factories over there, and sold them a few years ago, but just got into contract manufacturing way before anybody else ever hit China. Well, for the most part. And then after that, it was fulfillment, specialty packaging. And at the end, while we were doing all of this, a friend of mine asked me to go to an Amazon conference. And I said, wow, this is my perfect storm. I already know most of this, and just jumped in at that point.
Fantastic. So you got involved in kind of an intrapreneur, it sounds like, as I like to refer to it, before you got into your entrepreneur status.
Yes.
Yeah. So explain a little bit how that worked for you. Like, when did you make the final leap? When did you realize this is what you wanted to do?
It didn't go well the first time. So the first time I was looking at and again, this is my buddy Riz. He was saying, oh, you got to check out, there's this thing called AMM. I think it was AMM. And that was the beta for ASM1. But AMM was all about Kindle. And I thought, I don't want to do Kindle.
Right.
So then ASM1 came out, and I was still kind of, Riz, I don't know if I want to do this. But AMZ, I think it was ASM3. We ended up going to Vegas, and it was electrifying. There was like 2,000 people in the room. You had Matt Clark and Jason Katzenbeck, and they were just, there was a lot of electricity there. And I thought, wow, this looks like something I could get involved with. But at the same time, and this was shortly thereafter, there was another group. They were affiliate marketers, and we were also in a training there. And I heard this doctor from Ireland say, like, he was a deer in the headlight. He understood the eCom side of things. He didn't understand the Facebook side. And it was very confusing for him. And he said, if I could only beat the S&P, I'd be happy. And he also said, I'm a doctor. That's my strength. I overheard it. I went up to him and I said, I can do that for you. And he went, what do you mean? I said, I can beat the S&P at the time. And so he said, okay, let's talk. About 2 weeks later, we got into business together. He had no idea what I was going to do for him. I built a brand. I built his products. I built his packaging, got it onto Amazon, and then it started. That's not, core of what we were doing, but that was kind of a unique product opportunity at the time. because I had no idea what I wanted to do, but there was an opportunity sitting in front of me.
Well, and that's how we get our breaks sometimes, right? It's like, what is that opportunity setting in front of us? And before, it's funny you mentioned ASM because so many people got their start to some degree,
Yeah.
5+ years ago, if you will. For many of us, old goats or goats, I'm not sure what we refer to each other these days. Prior to that, we were flipping some products in the arbitrage space because just identifying what Amazon would do. So, I respect that. It was kind of, again, what I call a crime of opportunity. It's let's see if we can get something to work, and we landed on a couple of great products, which helped us, learn how to understand the system's workings. And it sounds like you kind of walk down that sort of same path. When did you start to transition more into like your own brand, your own development, your own product line, your own business?
Late 13, 14, I believe. Yeah, that's when I took a look at, there's definitely some products out there. Amazon wasn't as strict at, I don't think I would ever go back into the products that I started with if it was today because they were just too strict. You could say things, but I understand Amazon too. There's certain restricted words. There's certain claims you can't make anymore. I mean, there's a lot of things that you could just get away with. And I think when I started, there wasn't even PPC. There was nothing. It was, I mean, if you put something up, you made money.
Yeah, it's such a different time, right? When we started to that PPC, as you mentioned, just as an angle to this conversation, it was very basic. It was kind of like push a button, hit your campaign, and just kind of hope it worked. There wasn't any. I remember when they started hiring Google engineers in, and it finally started to take off a little bit and become a little bit more like an AdWords sort of interface as they matured the first versions of it. Where are you headed this year? Like, what's on your radar now that you've got this momentum and you're moving forward? What are you seeing in the market? What are you seeing yourself doing this year? Is something different than last year? Are you hedging in areas that you're focused? Are you going into new areas?
Well, going back to that vertical integration, so I like the idea of having the sourcing company. So I have a company called Honu Worldwide, and I teamed up with a guy named Afalabi Orokon. Just a real brilliant guy when it comes to doing things differently. Anyways, it's a product, and I think this is a huge thing for what's going next in Amazon is product innovation. So he's a design engineer, and you can't sell a Me Too product on Amazon anymore. You can't do that. You have to do something different, and you have to have competitive research or competitive analysis. And if you own the team that finds the products and gets, has a handle on the supply chain management, I mean, that helps out. So that's the first step. The second step is to have a company that I have a bunch of contractors that work with me. I only have 1 or 2 full-time employees, but just being able to go out, if I need to have a great copy, get a great copywriter. If I need to have influencers, if I have to go live, if I have to do all these things that Amazon's saying that they want, which is building a brand right now, I want to surround myself with. And I did with PR Reach. So PR Reach is a company that started out as press releases. We've evolved over time. And now we're more of a content marketing company, influencer marketing company, more of a media relations company. So that helps with any of the brands that we're working with. And then at the end of the day, Tim Jordan approached me last year and he said, hey, look, I have this thing called Private Label Legion. Would you like to get involved with it? All we're doing is just sharing our network, with people. And that's a freebie. And then we have this mentoring program. It's called Centurion League, which if somebody wants to go to the next step, you can go, you join up, very inexpensive. It's like $199 a month and you can learn. Well, this has evolved now into what we think there was some lacking in the industry is the Mexican sourcing. Like right now, we've seen a turn. Afalabi, I mean, he said, look, we've got to change our focus from China. Like, take a look at different countries, India, Korea for cosmetics, over here for certain things. And we've noticed that we can compete or beat Chinese prices with products like wood, believe it or not, or changing materials, looking at it differently. And then Tim and I were talking with Amy Weiss, and it was like, we got to take a look into Mexico or into South America. And that whole conversation turned into, why don't we do an event? And now this, I mean, I don't even think it's announced yet, but this event is going to be in Mexico. And we've got Alibaba involved. We've got all the main players are involved helping sponsor, but it's going to showcase suppliers, manufacturers in Mexico for the most part, as well as South American, Central American manufacturers, which I don't think has been done or not in a huge way.
We've been talking about last quarter, which is actually one of the reasons why Amy came on here in one of my recent podcasts that hasn't been published yet. It'll be coming out soon, in which we unpacked that just a little bit. And I know she was involved in talking with you about opening the Mexico channel because we've also been digging into it, just based on sourcing. And as you said, and this is very relevant to anybody listening, everybody wants to default to China constantly, like as the only support, source and pipeline and chain. And you've mentioned 3 or 4 places in India. We get stuff from Italy, and we've been opening doors into Mexico. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, I've seen, and maybe you can echo from what you've said just now in the last couple of years, based on logistics and supply chain challenges. A lot of doors have been opened into other countries and pipelines of products that not everybody is considering if they stop to think about it. And there's something else you said that I want to talk about for just a second, and that was obviously brand diversification, and branding is a huge component you've mentioned. Can't just do a Me Too product on Amazon, something that we've also echoed for a while now. You've got to differentiate, create that USP, that unique selling position. How are you helping others see that in the way that you do it? How are you helping them see brand creation?
Well, that goes back to perceived value. What I found, and I just did this for a Centurion, I took Dead Sea Mud and I said, I don't care if this is this product or any product. You'll pick any product on Amazon. You'll see typically there's 3 levels. You've got the bottom feeders, which are just product cannibalization. You're working for nickels and dimes. So in this case, for Dead Sea Mud, it was an 8-ounce Dead Sea Mud for $6.97, up to, I think it was $12. Then you had the mid tier, and there was prices in between, but typically it was $20 up to about $40. And those were people that had better packaging, same size for the most part. Some were 16 ounce, some were 8 ounce, but they ranged in that price. And then you had the highest tier, tier A. And those were people that were selling between $70 and $90. And they were 3.5 ounce, 4 ounce. And then one was 8 ounce that I looked at. And I showed, I said, it's the same Dead Sea Mud. The only difference is brand perception. And if you go with somebody who's going to build a $5 templated logo around this, and you're going to go with the same jar that the manufacturer goes with all the time with everybody, then you're never going to be able to get your product out there. The people that had 3.5 ounces of Dead Sea Mud selling at, and I believe this was $90. I believe it was. But it's in that top tier. What did they do differently? Well, it was a gorgeous package, and they could provide, because this would be a recurring product, they could provide the customer experience that would also stand up to that perceived value. So your listing has to, like, you can go out there and you can say, I want to sell my Dead Sea Mud at $90. But if your listing looks like a $6.97 listing, it's not going to work.
That's right.
Right.
Well, and you mentioned influencer marketing and branding. So there's a huge component of this that we've seen, witnessed, and been doing. And I'm sure you will echo this based on what you just told me. If you get enough influencers to say, this is the product and here's the differentiation, and you just see that message and build that narrative, you're going to help elevate your product perceived value, right?
Right. That's absolutely. You can't get perceived value from your friends and family. You have to go out to the marketplace and see what real people think about your product. And that could be as simple as going to Usability Hub or PickFu and asking people what they think of the product or the brand. And I call it the Brady Bunch effect. So you surround your product with your competitors. And if you can equal or do better than your competitors, you're on track. But if you don't, go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. I love what you're talking about here, because we echo this constantly. The 3 avatar tiers within Amazon, everybody wants to get into this, what I call the mosh pit. of Amazon, which is that bestseller badge choice kind of level of $30 or less products where the people are slamming around and it's just a nasty, sweaty mess. You're talking about second and third tier products. Those avatars are on Amazon, and it's great to hear you echoing that because that's where we play. And I know that's what you're talking about, and what people should get out of listening to this today is a concerted understanding of the elevation of brand awareness within Amazon. Amazon's brand management team is growing. Its policies are changing. It's affecting and actually implementing some of the policies that have been there for years. We're just finally starting to see them execute some of them, which is cool for those of us in the brand space. Not so cool for those who are just sort of going for profit flips on Amazon. Now, you mentioned something else. Profitability is what I took out of what you said in terms of the ability to supply more to the customer. More value, more perceived value, more intrinsic value comes from the profit of that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I can give you, if you want to talk profitability, perceived value also helps you with profitability. And I'll give you an example. So this is a brand that we brought to market. This was a client, and they brought us a knife. And it was basically a layered Damascus steel knife. I had 67 layers of steel, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it was a knife, $16. And there was other people that were selling it online for $49. He was already online at $49. It was a clamshell package, which was ugly. It was a clamshell. So you've got this $49 knife you get, and people get it, and they say, yeah, it's $49. So we told them, look, get a hard, rigid packaging with a magnetic flip and a message on the inside. Put the knife in like a compression or an EVA foam. And so we brought it out at $79, and we got it up to $124. And then it stays between $99 and $124, $16 knife. Then we thought, wow, why don't we hammer the steel? So we make it a little bit different. It's a hammered steel Damascus knife, same knife, except hammered. And we'll put it in a wooden case. And then in the wooden case, let's bring it out at $224. So you've got a $16 knife, and the same rule applies. Tier 1 is you've got the $34 to around the $50 range. The second tier, which is the $70 to about the $125-ish range. And then you've got the top tier, which we're not even at the top of the tier. Top of the tier for those knives are up to around $350 plus.
Yeah, $350 or about, yep. Yeah, it's just that I call it the iPhone effect in terms of their branding and the feeling and the weighting of the package and the perceived immediate aspect that product emotionally feels to the customer when they grab it. There's a big difference if it doesn't have Chinese packaging on it and if it actually has a really brand good perception. And it's great what you're saying, because I think if someone's listening to what Norm is saying today, and hopefully you're taking away some amazing things from this and that is a reminder that if you're going to compete in the brand marketplace, if you're actually going to compete in Amazon or anywhere in the e-commerce marketplace today, including Amazon, you are going to have to step up your game when it comes to the branding, the perceived value, and the price points of your products, or we're going to eat your lunch.
Right. Yep, exactly.
Is there something that maybe you can leave us with today? One amazing tip or just some thought or one thing you'd love to share at the last moment here with folks that you feel would be a great takeaway for them?
Probably right now, if we stay with the branding side, is brand consistency. Brand consistency is everything. And if you have a brand on Amazon, what's the first thing somebody's going to do? You're a micro brand. Nobody knows you. And even if you sell $10,000 or $100,000, nobody knows you. So they're going to go onto Google and they're going to try to find you. And if you have a Shopify page that sucks, or if you've got some designer that you got for $200 and doesn't bring across your brand, it doesn't have to be expensive, but it's got to be consistent. Same thing with your social media. It's got to be consistent. Probably the biggest thing that you could do is create content. And the content, either in a press release or in a blog article, that's going to show that you're real. And if you, especially with a press release, I love press releases, but if you can show, it's not going to drive 1 million people to your site. But what it's going to do is those who are looking for you, it's going to say, oh, this person's real. They were on NBC or Fox News or CNN or something like that. But you get validation. And I always say authority equals trust equals sales. If you don't have those two, you're not going to get sales. That's probably the biggest thing. I do have one other thing, and this goes back to the importing side. Check your HTS code. So that's your harmonized taxes, right? Your tariffs. A lot of the times coming out of China, you'll have an HS code. US doesn't recognize that. It's an HTS code. And a lot of the times they're wrong. We've saved anything from a few $1,000s up to $60,000 on a shipment because we just reclassified it. So you want to make sure, and I'll give you an example. So one of my products is soap, and I'm in the business, and I thought, okay, I'm selling this olive oil-based soap, this natural soap. Okay, great. I didn't realize that if I put it under Castile soap, which is 100% the truth. You can't lie because you'll get in a ton of trouble if you ever get caught, and you will get caught. But Castile soap is all olive oil based. Mine was olive oil based. 0. So there was 0. I just saved 17% on my cost of goods. So this happens daily. That's probably one of the biggest things. And of course, if we're looking about supply chain management right now, what can you do locally? There's certain things you can't do. What can you do locally? Can you change anything about it? That is, I think, over the next year is going to be huge, going into the South America, Central America, Mexico, North, and United States, Canada as well. So source locally.
Okay. Fantastic insights, Norm. Those are amazing. Guys, I hope you paid attention to that, especially those of you who are already selling. That was a big pro tip. You should go back right now and check your codes. You might save some money today thanks to Norm. Norm, thanks for coming on, bro. Guys, check him out. I know he's on LinkedIn. He's on Facebook. He's across the web. Check out his Centurion League and get into, if you loved what you heard today, talk to him, see what's going on, see if he can help you. Norm, thanks so much for coming on today and sharing with us.
You're very welcome.